Hello, my name is Nicholas. Now today I'm going to tell you a story of what may have seemed like a typical day to any normal intern, but there is nothing normal about today, and nothing normal about this intern. Now to understand my horror, I want you to do a few things before you continue reading. Firstly, turn out all the lights. Utter darkness, the only light radiating from your computer screen. Secondly, make sure there is utter silence, not a sound. No television, no music, no talking! Don't think I don't see you whispering over there. You want to tell the class what's so fucking funny? You want to shut the fuck up and let me tell this story? God! Lastly, make sure you're very alone, which isn't a challenge for most of you losers. You'll see why soon enough. Oh, how very soon you'll see. It was my first day as an intern at Nickelodeon Studios. They picked me up after receiving my associate's degree from ITT Tech. It was a stupid school, but it taught me what I needed for this chance. Running donuts and making coffee sucked, I can tell you that much, but it had its perks. Me being on the road of an editor, I sometimes received the opportunity to see episodes before they were officially released. Normally interns can't really do that, but I gave one of the animators a handy in the janitor's closet. Today I was invited into the editing studio, but you see, it was odd. There was no one there. I guess Dan stood me up. I later found out he was cheating on me with another intern, but that's besides the point. Normally this would cost me my internship, but oh god, I just couldn't resist the urge. I mean the trespassing in the editing studio, not the fling with Dan. That was pretty usual around here. It was overwhelming, encompassing. Oh dear god, that feeling! As soon as I walked in, the door slammed behind me. I figured this was one of those somewhat cruel pranks that the editors sometimes pulled on the new guys. So when the door was locked, I figured this was some kind of cruel punishment, and my heart slowly sank. Normally I love being punished, but this was too far. My internship was in huge jeopardy. Oh, they probably already knew I was here. Panicking, I ran to the door with all my force, slamming into it with all my might. Now, not to boast, I was not the weakest guy. I'd been working out for the past 3 years. But dear Lord, there was something on the other side of that door. Some force stronger than the strongest man. Me. Again, not to brag, but making sure I couldn't leave until I did what I was sent in there to do. Now in my panic, I hadn't noticed the netbook, the chair, and the small table it was sitting on. In the disc tray there was a blank CD. Usually these were editing discs, completely cherry episodes, just barely leaving production. It didn't have any markings or even a name, but something beckoned me. Something pushed me to the chair and forced me to sit. As I slowly pulled the chair back, my heart rate slowly increased. You could almost hear it in my chest. Thump! Thump, thump. I slowly pushed the DVD tray shut. Without any prompt or confirmation, it just started. Something seemed odd straight away. Normally it would open in the VLC or Windows Media Player. However, this was odd. It just opened with no video player. It seemed the computer itself was just a video player, but it couldn't be. It seemed like any normal netbook the interns or staff carried. Or was it? As the title card flashed, I could immediately see my first assumption was wrong. It wasn't a cherry or slightly edited build. They never had title cards. This was either finished or just ready to leave production. The title card seemed odd. I had never seen anything like it. Instead of the usual fun font they used that popped and seemed colorful, of course to appeal to more children. It seemed more gothic, something you would see in a horror film. The words in the title card made my heart sink farther. It had to be a joke, right? Why would someone try to scare me this terribly, though? The words read, "You nosy intern, you shouldn't have come in here." Probably Denise from accounting, that bitch has it out for me. And the usual happy bubble transition that we were all used to was gone. The text just melted down the screen, almost like blood running down a wall. And it slowly faded into the show from a couple seconds of utter silence. It transitioned into one of the familiar openings, with SpongeBob slowly snoring in bed and Gary sleeping beside him on his newspaper. The blowhole of an alarm clock was there, even the bed was. I began to feel relived. I remembered all this from when I was a kid. It seemed normal. But was it? Oh, dear God, I was wrong. Forgive me. You must forgive me. I'm choked up, just writing this. I wanted to forget this, but something compels me to share my story. I was expecting the blowhole to go off, and SpongeBob to start his typical routine. Oh, how bad that thing annoyed me as a kid. But it didn't come. There must have been at least 3+ minutes of SpongeBob just snoring, and then something finally happened. It started to slowly pan into his face. Oh, so slowly, waiting in anticipation, just dying for something to finally happen. I would later greatly regret this decision. Oh, what I would give if it had just ended right then and there. As it finally reached deep into his face, showing all his pores, blemishes, and even his nostril hair in perfect detail, you could clearly see his expression. It was one of horror, malice, one someone in a terrible nightmare would have. His eyes just almost seemed like they'd been stitched shut. It then had a transition, not to the usual fade to black or the joyful bubbles, but something altogether much more sinister. It was a fiery transition, almost like the previous screen had just been burned up. By all appearances, we were now in SpongeBob's mind and his dream, his nightmare. It appeared to be Bikini Bottom. Oh, but there was something very, very wrong. The whole city seemed in shambles, the horizon blood red, the buildings burning. SpongeBob was just walking down the road. It seemed like the typical path he would normally take to the Krusty Krab. The people around him... Oh, dear God, I still remember it. The blood-curdling screams! At this moment, I realized that there was something very wrong. This had no appeal to children. Hell, most adults would probably find this a bit morbid at this point. The scream. Oh, the scream! It was of someone in great pain, being tortured or slowly dying. A blood-curdling... At this point, I couldn't see who it was coming from. Just SpongeBob walking slowly, silently, as the screaming slowly continued, getting louder and louder. Oh God, I almost wanted to claw my eyes out when he turned the corner. I saw the source of the screams. It was terrifying, horrible, and inhuman. It was Patrick hammered to a stake, almost like the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. But also his stomach. Oh God, it had been torn open, his entrails slowly leaking out. The look on his face, seeing SpongeBob, he seemed relived for a moment. Almost as if his salvation had come. His eyes began to water, just staring at SpongeBob, almost beckoning. His eyes spoke for him. They screamed, "Please, oh God, please help me." We then transitioned over to SpongeBob, and he now just stood there staring back at Patrick, watching his friend slowly suffer and die. Patrick had begun to weep slowly, almost as if he understood something that I, the viewer, did not. SpongeBob then began to open his mouth. Slowly, in a low, almost satanic, demon voice, he whispered, "Suffer, fat one. You, this whole town, brought this upon themselves." And then he turned and slowly walked away. Now, I love some toxic yaoi, but this is ridiculous. At this moment, I screamed out in horror, almost praying someone would hear me. Someone would just walk in, and it would cost me my internship, but anything to end this. Now, you may find yourself thinking, why don't you just stand up and attempt once more to escape? Or at least turn off the episode? I couldn't. Something deep down inside me told me that if I moved, I would regret it. I just had to finish watching. I just had to. SpongeBob then continued down the road, slowly approaching the Krusty Krab. In the background, you can now hear more screams. Some were horrible, blood-curdling ones. You could tell they came from one in great agony. As a serial killer, I would know. I'm very familiar with that specific type of scream. But there had been one new sound thrown in. A horrible, twisted laugh. One of great malice. Almost as if someone had been hunting an animal and thoroughly enjoying himself all too much. Just like me when I microwaved my sister's hamster that one time. You could hear them very distinctly fading away into the background. as if they were chasing someone. Someone in the other direction. You could hear them. Oh, even faded, it was heart-stopping. SpongeBob seemed unfazed, as if he was almost used to it. You could now slowly hear clattering behind him, slowly breaking the mind-numbing silence. It sounded almost as if something was crawling slowly towards him. SpongeBob then slowly turned as if he expected this. As he slowly turned, his face slowly came into view. His eyes, they changed. They no longer seemed to be his normal, happy, joyful-looking eyes. They were blood red and full of malice, hate, and anger. One would expect this face from a demon. Hell, even the devil himself would be shaking in his boots at this horrible sight. I myself now slowly began to weep, with no end to this horror in sight. His eyes now fixed on something. It slowly transitioned over. It was Patrick. Dear God! Oh my God, forgive me! No human should be forced to see that! His entire lower body was now missing, with his intestines slowly trailing behind him, the trail of blood behind him. His empty arm sockets had huge holes in them, almost as if something had been torn out of them or something, but I couldn't tell what, though. The nails, he had ripped himself off the steak? His face slowly came up, his eyes beckoned once more to SpongeBob, but this time they said something different. He slowly began to speak, and I'll never forget those words. Kill me, please, I'm sorry. We're all sorry. Please, just end it, please. I can't take the pain. SpongeBob responded with a hellish tone, even worse than before.
You ask for forgiveness from me? Do you take me as your God?
Patrick responded, I do. And the preacher behind them announced, and I now pronounce you husband and eldritch horror. You may now kiss the cosmic deity. And after they shared a tender embrace and a sloppy, passionate kiss, SpongeBob put on his serious face and said,
You will receive no divine forgiveness from me. You see, it is my job to make you suffer. Burn, fat one!
And with a flick of his wrist, arms, hellish arms, seemed to just sprout from the ground and grabbed a hold of him and tore him down into what seemed like an endless hellish abyss. All the way down you could hear that blood-curdling scream from before. Ah! Oh God, no! 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 Can I at least keep our New York studio apartment in the divorce? No! Then SpongeBob slowly turned as if nothing had happened. He even let out a small, evil giggle.
Little does he know, I already bamboozled him into signing over all our assets.
By this point, I had almost been wishing for the same thing to happen to me, just so I wouldn't have to see this anymore. At this point, I was crying so hard I almost felt like a little girl. I felt weak, empty, as if I was about to throw up. As much as I wanted to, I just couldn't choke anything out. SpongeBob then slowly approached. Finally, the doors of the Krusty Krab. The path behind him, oh God, the usual cheery path to the entrance, had stakes all along it. Into them were hammered the corpses of our familiar favorite characters. Sandy, Mr. Krabs, Larry the Lobster, Pearl, Squidward, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, Mrs. Puff, Daffy Duck, and so on. And on their faces, they all too wore that expression of utter sorrow and horror, as if they had died crying in fear of what stood before them. We then transitioned back to SpongeBob, who now reached for the door. Now, something happened out of this horrible, nightmarish thing I was witnessing. The whole building began to shake, almost as if during an earthquake. The only light in the room blew out and the power went out. I was now in the dark, alone, in this shaking building. I could hear my fellow interns flee and the developers run out, without even a second thought of where I was. You could hear the car tires squeal as they raced away. Why had they been in such a hurry to escape? I mean, surely it wasn't the earthquake or the collapsing building. I guess my pussy-ass coworkers can't handle a little bit of debris. Pfft. I then turned back to the show, almost as if I was being forced to watch. He now stood alone in the Krusty Krab. All lights were out and there was utter silence. except for a small red glow coming from the door that usually led to the kitchen. That oh-so-familiar kitchen where SpongeBob usually stood making his delicacies. He began to slowly approach it, slowly in silence. As he reached it, he stood in front of the door, almost as if he himself didn't want to go in. Reproachfully, he slowly turned the knob and swung the door open. Oh God! How I wish I could just unsee what I saw and heard. SpongeBob faced a hellish demon of indescribable horror, burning in a portal to what seemed to be hell itself. Was this the devil? Oh God, the fear that came over me in this moment as its mouth slowly opened.
Did you make them suffer, son?
It asked in the most hellish tone imaginable, one of extreme rage, anger, malice, and hatred. SpongeBob replied, slowly saying, almost afraid to reply,
Yes, Father. They cried, suffered, and burned. A feast of souls waits for you below.
It replied simply,
Good son, now back to your cage, and be gone with you.
And at that moment, I finally threw up all over my own lap. Something began to emerge from SpongeBob, and his body almost slowly deflated. It almost seemed to be a human, a dog, or something. Oh God, I can't even find the words. It crawled towards the portal, and with a swift kick, its father kicked it into what appeared to be hell itself. Then it turned slowly and looked at me, the viewer, and slowly it mouthed something. So subtle, so quiet, but chilling to the very core. It seemed almost as if it was speaking to me, the viewer. It said,
Oh, don't worry. Your world is next. It'll suffer at your hands, as this one did it is.
It slowly transitioned over to SpongeBob, or what was left of his corpse, just skin.
Oh, you'll all atone for what you have done. All of you, you're next.
And with that, the computer itself slammed shut and burst into flames. As it slowly burned, I could only weep at this horror. This couldn't be real. Nick, wake up! My eyes slowly flashed open. I was in the break room on the floor. Above me stood my friend Tina, who said, Oh, thank God you're okay. You just collapsed. You've been up for about 5 minutes. My whole body was rattled, broken almost. Turning to her, I had this uncontrollable urge. Turning to Tina, I said, Don't thank God on this day. He won't save us. He abandoned us. His abominations, his failed creations. Tina looked aghast, horrified. She ran out screaming. I quickly got up and quietly left. And here I sit, writing my story of the day. Calmly, maybe now I accept my place. And oh, I have work to do. Isn't that right, Tina? Slowly turning to her dismembered body. You're next. I end with this. I am coming. I am his chosen slayer for the world. A messenger of hell itself. And oh, I am coming for you. Each and every one of you. And you'll never stop me. Don't try to run or hide, 'cause I'll find you. 1, 2. I've always been a fan of cartoons, especially SpongeBob. But since the incident of 19th of March of 2022, I vowed to never watch SpongeBob again. It was an old VHS I found in the park. It said, Patrick wants pancakes. By the name alone, I could already tell this was SpongeBob. I took it to my room and placed it in the VHS player. And soon, after 3 seconds of static noises, the episode began. The theme song was normal, but the title card went to static. Soon after 12 seconds, the title card was shown. It read, Patrick wants pancakes. The episode started at the Krusty Krab, with Mr. Krabs counting his money. I thought it would be normal. Patrick came into the Krusty Krab and asked for pancakes. Squidward then said,
Are you joking? This place smells burgers, not pancakes.
SpongeBob even agreed with Squidward. Patrick then asked Mr. Krabs if he could have some pancakes. Mr. Krabs, being the cheapskate he normally is, said,
I can't afford the ingredients for pancakes, laddie. But you can make yourself some pancakes at home.
Patrick then got sad and cried. He said, I'll make pancakes. Oh, yes, I will. I thought it was a bit odd for Patrick, as his personality is usually stupid, carefree, and kind. But in this episode, he's threatening Krabs in some way. It then shows Patrick and his rock, but something was off. He was wearing gloves, but it wasn't his doctor's gloves from Suds. He then went into a door that led into a dark room. He shined a flashlight and looked for something. It was then he saw an axe. He said, I wanted pancakes, damn it! Hearing Patrick swear was really odd. But what happened next shocked me to the core. He then over to Squidward's house and destroyed his front door. When Squidward woke up to see all the nonsense that was happening, Patrick decapitated Squidward with his axe. And to add insult to injury, he cut up Squidward's head and body and made a pancake out of it. I was in utter terror when Patrick did this, and wondered what will happen to the other characters. Patrick then wandered over to Krabs' house and knocked down his door too. But Krabs was just sitting there counting his money, and when he saw Patrick with his axe, he let out a horrid scream. Patrick cut off Mr. Krabs' eyes and claws and proceeded to make a pancake out of Mr. Krabs as well. He then made his way back to SpongeBob's house and knocked down his door. He knew that his friend wouldn't be cut up so easily, so he set fire to SpongeBob and proceeded to make a burnt pancake out of his best friend. He then walked towards the chump bucket and made a pancake out of fucking plankton! He then said, Hey, you didn't give me pancakes too! And he turned to me. Before he could swing his axe at me, I turned off the VHS and broke it in two. After the events, I never watched anything SpongeBob related again. I will never forget what happened, and regretted the day I ever picked up that VHS tape. Do you remember SpongeBob? If you don't, it's a wacky show about a sea sponge, specifically an Alpacina fistularis, a yellow tube sponge that is commonly found in open waters, named SpongeBob, and his silly shenanigans with his friends Patrick the Sea Star, otherwise known as the Starfish, Plankton the Phytoplankton, and Squidward. The show airs on Nickelodeon and began around the late 90s. So my name is Randall, and I have some insider knowledge about this show and its production. My father, Steven Hillenburg, created the show, and he told me that I can join the SpongeBob team when I get to be a big boy. Currently I'm only 37, and I'm super duper excited for this. Today I went down to the studio to say hi to my dad because my mom was nagging me because I haven't left the house in 5 months. When I walked into the production room, one of my dad's associates told me he would be done with his work in about 5 more minutes and to wait outside. Actually, what she said was, I told you several times Mr. Hillenburg doesn't have a son, and he has no idea who you are, and will have to file a restraining order if you show up here again. But I knew what she meant. That really sucked because my phone died, so I couldn't watch my Family Guy funny moments while I waited. So it was the most excruciating 5 minutes of my life. Just then, in the corner of my eye, I noticed an old DVD case lying around on a nearby table. I went to investigate, and it was an episode of SpongeBob that I hadn't heard of, which is surprising, because I'm the world's #2 fan, second only to Patchy the Pirate. The episode was called SpongeBob's Last Supper. I found this interesting. Could it be the new episode I've been hearing about lately? I put the DVD in my Doomsday prep bag that I always carry with me anytime I leave the house, even to get my mail, and I continued to wait. Later that day, when I got home, I hooked up my old DVD player and got ready to watch the episode. The episode started up normally, as I would expect, but the theme song was in E minor and slowed down plus reverb, and the title card was written in black ooze. I thought this was a bit odd, but I shrugged it off as a glitch and I kept watching the episode. We opened at the Krusty Krab, and right away I was nervous for what would happen because this episode was from Season 5, and Mr. Enter said that if an episode from Season 5 starts at the Krusty Krab, then it's going to be one of the worst episodes of the whole series. We see SpongeBob in the kitchen making Krabby Patties and singing a silly little ditty. Just then, SpongeBob gasps in horror as he noticed that while he was so busy singing his song, he didn't realize that he accidentally added slightly too much mustard to one of the patties. SpongeBob starts hyperventilating and violently shaking. Squidward hears the commotion and peeks his head into the window thing to yell at SpongeBob for interrupting his reading of Jazz Monthly. SpongeBob suddenly puts a pause on his mental health crisis to say,
You know, Squidward, you could at least ask if I'm alright or call for help. When it sounds like I literally can't breathe and might be in danger, instead of just being a total dick about everything all the time.
Squidward makes a little Squidward sound with his nose and rolls his eyes at SpongeBob's asinine comment.
I can't even understand his barnacle head language sometimes,
Squiddy remarks to himself annoyedly as he goes back to reading his book, ignoring SpongeBob's nonsense. Just then, Mr. Krabs waddles into the kitchen to check on his employees. SpongeBob's blue orbs glisten in the glow of the cheap Krusty Krab lighting fixture as he goes to greet his boss Kun. Mr. Krabs asks SpongeBob and Squidward how their workdays are going, which reminds SpongeBob of the horror that had just bestowed him. He presents the tainted patty to his boss, awaiting the harshest of punishment. SpongeBob assumes a submissive position before Mr. Krabs, telling him to do his worst. Eugene sighed.
I'm not going to punish you again, SpongeBob. You enjoyed it a wee bit too much last time, and it made me a little uncomfortable. You're a fucking freak.
SpongeBob looked down, disappointed. He turned back towards Squidward's window.
You heard him, Squiddy. We have to give this patty a proper burial.
SpongeBob dragged Squidward out back to commence the ceremony, which he conveniently already set up for some reason. At the funeral, Spongy and Squidders were gathered around the patty's grave. SpongeBob started reciting his speech that he'd already had prepared ahead of time for some reason. When he was done, he asked Squidward to read his speech. Squidward, however, didn't have one prepared, and didn't seem to be taking the situation seriously.
You know, Squidward, I've had enough of your seahorse shit today.
SpongeBob materialized a machete out of the water around him and dust particles, and sliced Squidward into several pieces in a hyper-realistic bloody mess. SpongeBob chuckled to himself.
Guess they'll have to call you Squid Sentence now. This is your period.
SpongeBob walks away, twirling the machete in his fingers like a badass. This was another fairly odd occurrence, but I shrugged it off as another glitch. And I just continued watching. Just then, Mr. Krabs tittled his tiddly crab legs outside, seeing the mess.
What the fuck did you do to Squid Paragraph?
He yelled out in disbelief. SpongeBob did a dramatic gulp.
Got a zigzag,
he exclaimed, running to his home as a laugh track played somewhere in the background. Mr. Krabs shook his head in disapproval while shaking his fist at SpongeBob.
The murder and dismemberment of your fellow employees is highly against company policy,
he yelled out at his naughty coworker. However, it was too late as SpongeBob was already miles away. I was starting to get very annoyed. It was already 3 minutes into the episode, and SpongeBob still hadn't had a single supper yet, alone his last. The scene then cut to SpongeBob's house, and we hear incoherent mumbling and frantic shuffling coming from outside. While the OST from Super Mario 64 played faintly in the background, but was slowed down, distorted, and scary. And it sounded a little hyper-realistic, if you can believe it. SpongeBob then ran out of his house carrying Sans Undertale on his back. I gasped in horror. Now everything in this episode was fine before this, but this is where I drew the line. How the hell did Sans manage to light his bong underwater? I hope somebody got fired for this blunt blunder. Oh well, at least I got to see one of my favorite characters in the show. Sans hasn't made an appearance in quite a while, and I'm glad they brought back this beloved character. SpongeBob asked his best friend what he should do, to which Sans replied, Well, SpongeBob, this seems like a pretty bad time. I'm Sans Undertale. SpongeBob smiled.
Thanks, buddy. You're right. You always have the best advice.
Sans nodded. I'm Sans Undertale. I have bad times. SpongeBob looked dejected.
You really think so, Sans?
Sans replied sternly. Time bad. Sans me. SpongeBob was disappointed to hear this, but he agreed with his best friend's assertion. He knew it had to be done. Sans, glad SpongeBob saw it his way, gave a relieved time. SpongeBob went back to the Krusty Krab to the scene of the slaughter with a roll of extra strong Scotch tape, ready to make things right. SpongeBob and Sans gathered up all of Squidward's body parts and taped them back together, and set him upright at the cash register. Sans used his gaster blaster to weld his head back on so it wouldn't be too droopy. That way he'd look a little more welcoming to the customers. Mr. Krabs tiptoed out of his office over to the dandy duo.
Good job, boyo,
he said.
That's half of your infraction dealt with. Now I won't have to fire ye.
SpongeBob, Sans, and Mr. Krabs all then jumped up, freezing midair, as happy music played for exactly 1 minute and 26 seconds. Good thing I had my handy-dandy stopwatch on me. Squidward would have jumped too, but he was still dead. SpongeBob then invited all his pals over for supper later that night to celebrate the helpful new lessons he learned throughout the episode, as he was always known to do. In the final scene, we see SpongeBob back at home, gather around a long dining table with all of his closest buddies, Sans, Plankton, codenamed the Plank, Squidward, now good as new, and Sandy the Squirrel. This would be SpongeBob's last supper, as from now on, he would call it dinner instead. And this was where the episode ended.
Honestly, I was pissed!
This episode was way too short, and SpongeBob changing his iconic line at the end, welcome to supper, to the new welcome to dinner, was a step too far. Clearly this decision was put in to make the show more woke, but I, as a longtime serious fan, was not having it. I'm not one to allow dinner politics into my cartoons. Plus, they clearly only brought Sans Undertale back for the fan service. They didn't even remember to add in his old catchphrase, I'm ready, I'm ready. So the writers clearly didn't even do their homework on Sans' character. Yeah, this episode sucked, and I wrote a strongly worded email to Nickelodeon Studios. They wrote back saying something along the lines of, this is a cease and desist for harassment. I'm not sure what that means, since I don't know much legal jargon, but I think it's safe to say the writers will swing for this, and it won't go unpunished. I popped the DVD out and smashed it to pieces with my nail-covered baseball bat that I conveniently keep next to my bed, in case of a situation like this. If you ever come across a copy of this episode, please follow my example. It's for your own good. Okay, so a few days after I destroyed the disc, I started hearing some strange noises in my house. I thought it was a glitch at first, but one night I was hearing more than usual. I got up to go see what it was. I froze in fear at the sight of a vague silhouette facing the wall at the end of my living room, in my old rocking chair. I nervously asked who was there, firmly gripping my bat just in case. Just then, a familiar voice said to me,
Hey, so you saw the last episode, eh?
I was stunned. I knew this voice anywhere. Patchy? I dropped the bat and approached the figure. A hand appeared on my shoulder.
That's right!
I turned around behind me to face Patchy. Wait, but if you're right there... I turned back around to face the chair, and the figure turned around, revealing itself to be some dude in a gorilla costume. Patchy, the gorilla, and I all had a good chuckle at this goofy situation. I asked Patchy what he was doing here, and more importantly, how he got into my house.
Aye, it be not very wise to keep your spare key under the welcome mat,
he said, with a hearty laugh as his parrot sidekick Potty joined in.
Now that you've endured the first true lost episode of SpongeBob, I can bestow upon ye infinite SpongeBob knowledge,
Patchy told me. Oh, sweet. Are there any more lost episodes? Patchy laughed.
That there are, kid. Ha 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 ha.
He reached into his pocket and pulled out a USB drive and handed it to me, and told me to handle it with care. I put it safely in my desk drawer for now. I then went to bed for the night, eager to take a look at that USB drive when I got the chance. But I still needed a bit of time to recover from this episode first. In 2006, Nickelodeon got an idea for making another SpongeBob Christmas special. The fact was any more specials expect for a strange one from Christmas Who, called SpongeBob's Worst Christmas. It was 3 p.m., and I was watching Nickelodeon, and I saw a Christmas special promo of SpongeBob Squarepants. When it went to commercial break, after that the split screen credits starts. After the Nickelodeon logo, the intro was not there, so it looked like it was not here. The title card was just like Christmas Who, but the background was grayscale, and the text was bloody. The episode starts with Patchy the Pirate, president of the SpongeBob Squarepants fan club. He said,
You are now watching this special.
Potty the Parrot and Patchy were watching Rankin Bass cartoons. puts up his various SpongeBob VHS and DVDs, and bakes bloody cookies, which Potty said, "Ew." Patchy also takes time to open a letter from a fan. They ask if SpongeBob has a very good Christmas. Patchy was once a time when Christmas in Bikini Bottom was hateful. He decides to bubble squash screen. Outside Patrick's house, SpongeBob. Inside, Patrick throws the Christmas lights, which SpongeBob was screaming on fire and tries to remove the fire after that. SpongeBob was burned. Later in the Krusty Krab building, Squidward's house was moving to kill Patrick. Mr. Krabs was scared. Everyone in Bikini Bottom were not alive, and is excited at the idea of Santa Bob Naughty Pants throwing knives at everyone. And they all, except Squidward. He said, "You're a little say shit," then pushed him and the wall. SpongeBob is sending a bloody cookie from Santa and finds Santa. He said, "You fucking cheesehead, you are never getting toys." Yet SpongeBob said,
"I am not a cheesehead, you bastard."
He was slapped by Santa 120 times until blood starts to get him. The people of Bikini Bottom was having a breaking news about eagerly waiting for the arrival of Santa, and the episode ends. Please do not watch this episode. One Christmas, I was opening my gifts, and I found a SpongeBob Squarepants DVD. It was SpongeBob Squarepants' Death at Christmas. I thought, a lost version of Christmas Who? Cool! So I put it on the DVD at 2:59 a.m., and it played out as normal. But SpongeBob in the main menu is covered in blood, and Patrick had his head chopped off. I clicked on play all episodes and watched it. The 2016 intro for SpongeBob SquarePants was on, but it was glitchy and had blood everywhere. Then a Patchy the Pirate segment was on. But Patchy the Pirate was crying because something terrible happened to SpongeBob. Polly said,
"Hey kids, it's Christmas time again, but Patchy the Pirate is crying because SpongeBob was hanged by himself."
Hanged by himself? That was odd. Squidward wanted to hang himself, not SpongeBob. Polly then said,
"Here, watch the damn episode."
The title card was saying Death at Christmas, and the snowflakes in the title card were covered in blood. The episode begins with SpongeBob, who wanted to show Sandy a secret karate move that he taught himself. But when she put on the Christmas lights, SpongeBob killed her with a karate chop. Then we go to the Krusty Krab, where SpongeBob was explaining Christmas to his friends. Patrick loved it, but Mr. Krabs and Squidward said,
"Santa's fake."
I was horrified by that line. They liked it in the final version of this. Expect Squidward. But here, SpongeBob then killed both of them and served them as Krabby Patties with blood on them. Then the rest of the episode went on as normal. But then, when Santa didn't came, SpongeBob killed everyone, and then after that, he noticed the chaos he made, so he hanged himself in Sandy's tree dome, ending the episode. Polly said,
"Well, I hope you never have Christmas at Bikini Bottom again. Merry Christmas!"
Then the end credits came on, and the ending logos were Nickelodeon spelled backwards, and Paramount Pictures, and a jump scare. I took out the DVD and smashed it. So if you have the DVD, then smash it and don't watch it. I assume you know about SpongeBob. It's a really popular show on Nickelodeon. But did you know it's hiding a dark secret? Everyone gather around, grab a blanket, and some spare britches, because here's the real story behind SpongeBob. So first off, everyone knows the creator, Steven Hillenburg, was a marine biologist. He had expansive knowledge of the underwater world and all the silly little creatures inhabiting it. He also knew a lot about things going on with the ocean that the average Joe like you or I wouldn't know about. Some of which heavily inspired his silly little fish cartoon. Some of you may be aware of the notorious Bikini Atoll incident, in which a ton of nuclear bombs were dropped on some island, and due to the name, people make connections to Bikini Bottom, the iconic town from SpongeBob. There is a major theory surrounding it, but it only tells half the story. Did you know Bikini Atoll was also the test sites of the iconic gay bombs revealed to us by the infamous commentator Alex Jones? Yes, the one that turned all the frogs gay. This is a real thing, but the mainstream media doesn't want you to know, and the elites are hiding it. Just trust me. So what am I saying? The citizens of Bikini Bottom were made sentient from the blast, of course, but this we already know. But this is also the reason they're all gay. Don't believe me? Just you wait. It's pretty obvious that all the members of the SpongeBob gang represent a different letter in the LGBTQ acronym. Starting off with the Sponge himself, Sponge Robert Squarepantington III. Very obviously residing within the home of sexual. Look no further than my personal favorite episode, Squidward Puts His Tentacles in SpongeBob's Many Holes, in which it is vaguely implied that SpongeBob and Squidward may be a bit more than chums. He's also a huge fan of blowing bubbles, which is really a metaphor for the other things he's blowing. It's also worth noting that he's happy all the time. Back in the olden days, the word gay meant happy. He also has a pet snail named Gary. Need I say more? Here's a clip from the episode SpongeBob Goes to the Salty Seaman. You'll see what I mean.
Bah! I've got many holes for many poles.
Next we got Sandy Cheeks of Lebanon. She's a strong woman in STEM, but this isn't what makes her a lesbian. Some may be confused. But wait, doesn't she like nuts? I see you saying? Well, clearly that's just what she wants you to think. I've seen the way she looks at Mrs. Puff. She doesn't have us all fooled. She also dresses like an astronaut. Typical Lebanese behavior. Here's a clip from an early season 2 episode where she says something interesting.
Yee-haw! Scissor me timbers! Time to lasso me up some poontang!
Then we have Squidward. Come on now, buddy. Only bisexuals play the clarinet. This guy's been around the block. SpongeBob's secret boyfriend, Squilliam's ex-boyfriend, and we've seen him competing against Sandy for some of that pufferfish ass. He likes it all. He's also a really artsy fellow, very bi trait. He's also pissed off all the time, which can be expected when you're constantly getting rejected by women and men. 'Cause damn, nobody wants you for real, Squiddy. Roll that clip again.
I gotta get the pole and the hole on my tentacle.
Second to last, but not second to least, the old Crabinator. Mr. Krabs sure is a big tough guy. Why is it that he constantly feels the need to prove how manly he is? Could it be that back in his childhood, back when Eugene was Eugenia, he wasn't allowed to express himself fully, and now he's finally free? Think about it. We've seen Mr. Krabs naked before. Where is his big crabby cock? Where is it? Isn't it also suspicious how, with both Sandy and Squidward pining for Mrs. Puff, she chose old Eugene? This is because pufferfish women are notoriously into trans men for their money, a pretty well-known fact in the realm of marine biology. And money is something Mr. K has a lot of. Everyone knows transgender men are getting that bag. Either that or he's Jewish. Just watch this clip, and you'll see what I mean.
Arr, gar, 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 gar. I'm Eugene Krabs, and this is me voice 8 months on T. Arr, gar, 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 gar.
Now there's only one letter and one main character remaining. You already know they got Patrick all up in that queue. Patrick is 50 Shades of Queer. Patrick is a trigender horsekin who uses */** self pronouns. Star is attracted to every gender that has ever existed across the realm of time. Star is also polyamorous and ready to party!
Oh, Patrick, I'm actually going by Pat They these days.
Now why does all this matter? Why is this a creepypasta? Well, it's because I'm homophobic. I contracted it as a wee lad. It was Halloween, and I had on my brave little toaster costume that I made myself. I went out trick-or-treating, and an older kid jumped out from behind a corner and yelled, "Ooga booga!" And I went, "Ah!" And I pissed and came all over my brave little toaster costume. The culprit who startled me was an effeminate guy in a plain white t-shirt that said, "I am a homosexual." After he spooked me, he went to go high-five his friend, a tall girl in thigh-highs with a little shark plushie, with a t-shirt that said, "I'm transgender." Ever since that day, I've been terrified of gay people, and every time I see them, I scream and go, "Ah!" And a drop of piss trickles down my good little Christian leg. So yeah, there's that. Plus, I just don't want them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' SpongeBob's gay.